Welcome to another episode of What's Up Irvine. I'm Curtis Drever, your host, and this podcast is about everything that makes Irvine a great city. Its people, culture, influence, and opportunities. My hope is that by following us, you will learn something new and interesting about our city and feel more connected to our community. Today in the studio we have with us Dan Rutstein of the Orange County Soccer Club. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Curtis. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. You have such a great background and interesting things that you're doing and have done. I'm just going to give a little bit more background for our followers, and then we'll get into the main interview. So Dan is a former sports journalist and British diplomat. I said that before. 007. You can't say anything, even if you were
MI6.
MI6. You're not an MI6, or if you could, you couldn't acknowledge. So, okay. He is now a podcast host. That's a tangent. Transatlantic trade specialist, and was recently named president of business relations for our own Orange County Soccer Club, which is a professional team here in Irvine, for those of you who don't know. Dan has a big vision and has greatly expanded the club's role and influence in our local community and beyond. So Dan, welcome again. Thanks for your time.
No, it's great. I'm delighted to be on here. I do indeed love Irvine, so it's great that I'm on this podcast.
Yeah, so you've got so much. You've got some great stories. I've followed some of your blogs and everything. But let's start with what are you most grateful for these days?
If you had told 12-year-old me that there is such a thing as running a professional football team, soccer team, and that actually one day I'd become a grown-up and get to run a soccer team, I think that would be the thing that I am grateful for. It is. I've been very lucky throughout my career. I've only ever had interesting jobs.
Yeah, okay.
I was a journalist, a news reporter, then a sports reporter, and sports something that I absolutely love. Working as a diplomat for the British government was fascinating. I ran a technology company. To be running a soccer team, I mean, like everything, it's not all soccer, and there's HR and there's finance and all things, but to be working in professional sport, particularly at the moment and where soccer is in this country, it's I tell the team, I think that my team get bored of me talking to them when I stand up in front and said, you do realise that we are being paid to work for a soccer team. It's an extraordinary privilege to be in that place.
Very grateful for that, huh?
100%.
And it sounds like that's also something, that's your passion, most passionate about these days?
Yeah.
Or maybe passion could be different, but...
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved sport. So since I was a kid, I played quite a lot of sports. None of them at an amazing level, but all of them at a reasonable level. But I've always watched sport. I've with my job as a sports journalist, obviously I travelled the world meeting sports people, interviewing sports people, watching sport. So it's always been a real passion of mine. And to have a chance to work in professional sport is so gratifying. And I think the thing for me is I walk into the stadium on a Saturday night and you look around and there's 5,000 people there and they are into this game.
They're energized.
They love it and they're enjoying it. And we talk about this a lot, but sport is about, we're a business, but we're in the memory making business. Like we want to look around that stadium and see families, see friends enjoying something together and community. Hopefully giving them something to go away with. And they'll talk about, were you there the night that, we won this game? Do you remember that night we spent together watching the game? And I think for us, we want to give people that. And we've created this community and people come every week to watch us play. And it's great to be the one who helps make that all happen.
That's great. That's a great perspective too. You're building community by creating this experience, and that's great when something happens. You say, "I was there. Were you there?" And it's you create that memories.
I think for us, a big thing is our sort of unofficial slogan is community heart, global vision.
Okay.
So sports teams have to be built from the ground up. It's not about your sponsors. It's about the fans who come into the stadium, their relationship with the players. And then, it's our job to entertain them. It's the players' job to entertain them. And then, we are trying to build this global brand in terms of player transfers, some of the partners that we work with. But at the end of it, it's all about the community in the heart of it.
Yes. So you obviously had a lot happen to you, and you've had you're now in this great place that you just mentioned. Let's go back a little bit. So growing up, I forgot where you grew up, but what's maybe the greatest lesson your mom or dad has taught you that you can remember?
So I grew up in southwest London, so in Wimbledon, which is better known for tennis than it is for soccer.
Oh yeah,
although
I've heard of that.
Yep, I support the soccer team there, but we're walking distance from Wimbledon tennis, so we used to go and watch the games there every year, which is fantastic. So I've always loved sport. And I think one of the biggest lessons, a sort of a professional lesson that my dad taught me. Where was I? I was a sports journalist. I was working in Bermuda at the time. So, of all the places to cover sport.
Bermuda, that's not bad, I think.
It's not a terrible place to be working.
Okay.
I was trying to work out what to do with my career. And my father was near the end of his career at this stage. He's just coming up to retirement. And he said to me, you need to think about your work choices based on the retirement speech that you give when you're finally giving up work.
Interesting.
And you're looking back and summarising your whole working career, and what do you want to say at that, and what do you want to have achieved? And he was frustrated he didn't achieve some of the things he did. He made bad choices about where to work and jobs that he should have left because he wasn't happy. And I took that on board, and I talked to my staff about that. But when I look at, is it about money? Is it about family? And actually, when you're making sort of career choices, which are so important, making the right choice and trying to sort of have some perspective on what you're doing. And I think that's helped me make good decisions career-wise that mean, A, I get to run a sports team, which I'm delighted about, but more than that, compared to maybe my last job, pre-pandemic, I worked for a technology company in a different state. So I flew to Utah every Tuesday until Thursday, and I didn't see my kids as much as I would have wanted to, and didn't spend as much time with my wife. And I think for me, this job is amazing. Now I don't get to see the kids on Saturday nights because I'm watching football.
Yeah, you're busy.
But I do spend a lot. I have a much better work-life balance in this role.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's very important. So when you think about career, it's not just about pure ambition. It's about how can you have a job that makes you happy, but also gives you that broader fulfillment.
So his advice was like, look ahead to reflect back at this, like way ahead. And and giving your speech at your retirement party, and you can think, okay.
And it's actually a version of that I use a lot for project planning. It's something we used to do in government.
Take this and work.
So you got an event in a month's time, and you say, let's all put ourselves in the position of the event's just finished. What are the things that have gone wrong that we wish we'd talked about a month before? Because it's a month before. So let's talk about them now. So you sort of project yourself in the future to look back, and sometimes you realise things that you're missing.
So growing up in London, I'm from California, but I think that intrigues people like, oh, somebody's from London here. So go back to something, maybe a story from your childhood that really jumps out at you that you think would be, I'm sure you have a couple, but pull it out. What was it like as a child growing up in London?
I think what's interesting is, particularly now, I've lived in 4 different countries, and I think everyone's view, you're from London and you see all these things that are in London, but actually, we were 20 minutes on the train from the centre of London.
It's a big city, enormous city.
So to go to Trafalgar Square and all these things, but actually we never did, because that's just not how it works. It's like people in California growing up, you're not on the beach in Malibu or walking up and down the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's not how these things work. And I think it was great. I think you're spoilt when you live so close to such a big place. So anywhere in the world you want to fly, you can go there on a direct flight from the airport. We'd go up and see shows. When we were at school, the school trips, we did a couple of school trips abroad, but we would go to the British Museum and, look at, ancient Egyptian artifacts. Okay. We had so much there. And you don't realise it because it's just where you're from. And I love going back. I don't want to live there anymore, and I've lived abroad now for 15 years, but I love going back, and I think the idea of Britain and the idea of London is still very appealing to people around the world. And I'm obviously proud to be from there, but it's obviously a very different world to to the life we have here in California.
Yeah. I've been in London a few times, and I was amazed at just how large scale it was, and then how many people are in the city.
Yes.
Just how many people are everywhere all the time. Busy city.
And compared to, for example, LA, but even here as well, public transport.
Oh.
You don't know you've lived until you can go from one side of an enormous metropolis to another in 20 minutes on a relatively empty tube train.
Yes.
I could get in and out of London very quickly, and here, the commute
takes a while.
It's in the car.
Yeah, it depends on the time of day and the direction you're going.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful.
I miss pubs. I miss.
You miss pubs, okay.
I miss pubs, public transport, and I love soccer over here, but there's something different about soccer over there.
Oh yeah, it's life and death over there, right? No.
Well, it is, and we talk here a lot about how do we fill our stadium at Orange County Soccer Club, and are we going to be able to get fans because they'll be going to games at maybe the LA Galaxy or LAFC, and there's so many other things to do, and can we are there is enough of an audience for us? In London, there are, I think, 16 professional teams in an area geographically smaller than Orange County. They're teams at 2 or 3 miles away from each other, and both of them are filling up their stadia. So, football's just it's a different thing over there. It's a religion.
Different challenges here, right? Like
yeah.
you said, do people have other opportunities? Or I guess it wasn't instilled as much.
It's not, and I think when we're looking at coming to soccer, there are people who literally live in the Great Park who probably don't know that Orange County Soccer Club is there.
Right.
There are definitely people, when they're looking at things to do, even if they're soccer fans, like, well, maybe I'll go to the beach, maybe I'll go to a concert. There's lots of direct and indirect competition here, which makes it hard in some ways, but then equally, those who've come to the stadium, including yourself, have loved it.
It's a great time.
Yeah.
It was packed, and it was again. I'm from the Monterey Bay area, so you were playing Monterey Bay area the night, and you guys won. That was great.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So, since we're talking about kind of growing up in childhood and some of your upbringing, what is actually maybe this is later in life, but what was a tipping point in your life that really changed your direction? Pivotal.
I think it was my third day at university, I think it was. So I went to university so I'm from London, and in England, the secret to university is to go as far away from your parents as possible.
Okay.
So you look at a map and you pick a university at the other end of the country.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. That's just how we do it. And now obviously these distances are tiny compared to America. So I went to York University, which was, I think it's a 3.5 hour drive from London, which obviously here is nothing, but over there it is. It's
Big
the
deal.
Top of the country. And I went to York, and it was
it's north.
Yeah, it was north.
Okay.
And it was great. So it's like 2/3 of the way to Scotland.
Okay.
And it was great to be away. And I went to what we called Freshers' Fair. I'm not quite sure. It's probably got a similar name here. And it's you go into a big room, and this is where you sign up for all the different clubs.
Okay.
And so I joined the football team and the tennis team and Scrabble team. And there was this thing saying, "Do you want to go and study in California?"
Oh, really?
And I thought,
that was one of the.
I thought that sounds like something I would very much like to do. So I went and signed up for this thing, and it was basically it's a 3-year degree, and you spend your middle year abroad. And there was partners with our university. There was, I think, there was one in New York, and then there was the university in Malibu. And then,
Malibu, okay.
Yeah, and then there was one in Toronto. So I thought, this sounds quite fun. So I signed up, and depending on what you're studying, you have to sit a little test, and you have to do various things. And I got a letter saying, "Congratulations, you've got your first choice. You're going to go." And I thought, this is
California.
great. I thought,
Malibu.
I'm going to go to California. And then what it actually was is I got my first choice based on my subjects, and I was studying philosophy and politics.
Okay.
And apparently the first choice for me in philosophy and politics wasn't Malibu. It was York University in Toronto. So I went there instead. And
Almost California.
So in the end, it was Canada. But so California drew me in, and then a bait and switch, and then I ended up in Toronto.
Signature, okay.
But just going over there and being away from home for the first time and living in a
more
different
than 3
country.
hours, yeah.
I mean, it was extraordinary. And I think I travelled a bit abroad, but this was living abroad. And I think I got a taste for that then. And then, one thing led to another, and I ended up working as a journalist abroad. I ended up being a diplomat abroad in a couple of different countries. And I think that first sort of real opportunity to go and study in another country set me up for a life of, traveling around the world.
Gave you some passion there, right? For doing that.
I realised that I needed to expand my horizons a bit.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. I took a business trip with my wife to Europe when I was early in my career. That changed my life. So it was just really, wow, there's a big world out there. So it really helped me. So similar to what happened with you there. So, hey, I know you have several podcasts. What's the one that you're most passionate about? I think you have 2 or 3, but or you can share all 3 briefly if you want.
Yeah, I do. So I have 3. I have a whiskey podcast.
Whiskey is, that must be popular.
It is. I have a football podcast, and I actually have a sort of Hollywood-based podcast. The Hollywood one is the most successful one in the sense of it's got the largest listenership, probably the highest profile guests, we have sponsors and so on. But the whiskey one is the one for me because it's my first one, but also I've often lived my life this way, but when I was a diplomat, I met the most extraordinary people because you have access to, obviously, high-level politicians, prime ministers, but you're meeting captains of industry, you're meeting senior people in the sports world. And when I decided to leave government, I was worried I wouldn't meet any more interesting people. So I decided to set up a podcast to give me an excuse to have conversations with interesting people. So I set up the whiskey podcast. I was very passionate about whiskey. And the concept is, it's not about whiskey. We just have a glass of whiskey and we talk about whatever it is. And I'm 90-something episodes into that one.
That's a lot.
And we've had the chief test pilot at Virgin Galactic, so who flew Richard Branson into space. We've had the head of the CIA in Russia. We've had the actor who played Chunk in the Goonies. We've had like a full range of people. But the concept for me was, I want to meet interesting people. This is a sort of excuse to do so. And it ended up being a great way of meeting new people. And then I sort of got into podcasting, and I've done a couple of others. But what's great about it is, if it wasn't for the whiskey podcast, I wouldn't be in this job. So during the
keep going. Keep going. This is great.
During the pandemic, I was running a tech company, and the pandemic was not good for the tech company because we specialised in trade shows, which were effectively killed. So I left that company, and a guy who used to work for me said, the guy who owns Orange County Soccer Club, he drinks whiskey. He might make an interesting guest for your podcast. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Don't really know anything about Orange County Soccer Club. Don't really know about this league, but I like football. I like whiskey. Let's see where we go. So,
hey, sounds fun.
I get on with James Keston, the owner of Orange County Soccer Club. We have it's over Zoom, so we have a couple of whiskeys and we get chatting about football and so on. We managed to do about 2 hours where we didn't even press record. We just chatted about football over whiskey. And by the end of it, he said, would you like to come and
that's a life change. That's pivotal right there.
So I started doing some consultancy for them, and then one thing led to another, and now I've ended up running the team. But it's because of my whiskey podcast, which was only set up because I wanted to keep meeting interesting people, and I guess it ended up working out.
You're giving me some ideas, like maybe we need to serve whiskey on What's Up Irvine,
little table here,
Yeah, so you just invite people, say, hey, let's have whiskey, and you invite.
Pretty much.
Do you do this yourself, or do you have someone that actually is helping you?
No, so I do. I find the guests, I edit it, I do the interviews, I do the whole thing.
So you run a soccer club, or the football soccer club, and you're doing this
on the side, just for fun. But what's great, well, pre-pandemic, I would turn up at people's houses with a bottle of whiskey, and we'd record it. The whole point, we'd record it like on their kitchen table while drinking whiskey together. Yeah. And then during the pandemic, I saved a lot of money because I wasn't having to give people expensive whiskey and Uber to their house. And back.
Yeah, you're right.
So we were doing it at home, but I'd send them something in the mail, and we'd drink the whiskey, and it aids conversation.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's pretty exciting. So, let's shift gears a little bit to soccer.
Yes.
And so, explained. I know you live and breathe it, but for our followers that may not know the difference between the USL and explain where the Orange County Soccer Club is in the professional level and how that impacts.
And it does need explaining because soccer in this country is different, and sport in this country is different. So in the major sports, there's only really the top level. Promotion and relegation doesn't really exist. And, there'll be plenty of basketball fans who don't even know that there's a thing called the G League because it's nothing compared to the NBA. I think in soccer, you've got the MLS, and they've got $1 billion deal with Apple, and they're trying to be the only soccer league in America, effectively. But there's more to it than that. And there is the level below, the second tier of soccer in this country is the United Soccer League. And we are in that. We were the 2021 USL champions.
Say that again, because I want to be clear. We won. 2021.
We won the national championship in 2021. I think the first team since the Ducks from Orange County to win a national championship.
Yeah, that's great.
Which was great. And we took the trophy along to the Honda Centre after we won and paraded it there. So it's the second team of US Soccer. It's fully professional. So we play in front of. We've sold out our last 3 games, which is about 5,500 people. The players are all professional. Some have played MLS. Some have played the top level of European football. A couple of them have played internationally for the countries that they're from. But it's a high standard of soccer, and it's professional. And when we won the league, all my English friends said, "Does that mean you've been promoted to the MLS now?" That's not, unfortunately, how it works. But it's a very good standard of soccer. All the games are televised. They're on ESPN Plus, and all our home games are on Bally, so the same network that people are watching the Angels and the Ducks on.
Okay.
And I think you sort of need to come along and experience it, but it's a very good standard of soccer. Yeah. And I think for me, why I enjoy this job so much at the moment is we're at a unique time in the growth of this sport in this country.
Okay.
So it's the highest participation youth sport. People are going off American football a bit because of concussion issues.
Yeah.
Baseball is still the national pastime, but it's not what it was.
Right.
And soccer is definitely growing. And I think actually there's 4 oddly sort of unrelated factors that are making a big difference. So one is the World Cup is coming here in 3 years' time. And so that's huge. But also the TV series Ted Lasso has brought soccer into the homes of many people. And it started as a joke, like, is Ted Lasso good for the sport here? But it really is.
Okay.
We Are Wrexham, which is the documentary about the team in Wales that Ryan Reynolds, the Hollywood actor, bought, has again brought soccer into the visibility. And then recently, Lionel Messi, unarguably the best player in the world, playing for Inter Miami, and people who didn't know anything about soccer will know the name of that player. And even though it's not our league, it's more soccer. And we were, I think, our last game. There was a few people in the stadium wearing an Inter Miami shirt with Messi's name on the back. Now,
hey, what is that? What are you doing with that?
Yeah, I mean, in England it's a bit weird. You don't go into someone else's stadium wearing the wrong shirt.
Yeah, then you get beat up.
But I think those factors together have just. It's on an incredible growth. So our league is the fastest growing second-tier league in world football. And I think, our audiences are growing on TV and in real life.
Yeah.
Sponsors are more interested. It's a special time.
It's exciting time too. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where, and you've been to a game, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So you come to these games, you think it's great, and you start evangelising to your friends. You should come to this thing.
Yeah.
It's not $150 for parking like the
SoFi
Stadium
great
is.
Seats. There's really not a bad seat in the whole stadium.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's a community soccer stadium.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. It's beautiful. There's like the mountains in the background. The sun sets over them while people are singing the national anthem. It's a lovely place to come and watch. But you say and these things in England, like, who cares about free parking? But it's $50 to park at the Galaxy, and valet parking is like $25 at most restaurants now.
No, it's a very it's a good deal. It's a really
you can bring your whole family and not spend very much money.
Yeah, when I was there, you had all the food trucks and everything. It was Saturday night. I saw people that I knew and like, oh hey, and so it was really a fun time.
Yeah. So obviously, both my job and my passion to say this, but it is a sort of it's a secret that those who
Trying
are
to
in the
get
know
out.
love, and we need to tell more people
Tell
about
more
it.
people. So you mentioned some of the exciting things. What's as being your position, what are some of the challenges you have? The biggest challenges, or
Yeah, it's a great question, Curtis. I think one of the biggest challenges is getting past this hump where people don't know who we are. So we've been there for 10 years, and I'm not sure if you stopped 50 people walking around the spectrum and said, do you know about Orange County Soccer Club? I'd like to think 10 would, but I'd be worried that 10 wouldn't. And I think that's one of our big challenges. And some of it is the slightly odd sort of media market here, where Orange County is an incredible place, but somehow LA eats all the media. So,
I know.
There's that. There are all the things you could do instead, the beach, the other sports. It's hard to get a message out. Plus, you don't have city centres in the same way.
Yeah,
that
Irvine's a different layout for cities. Yeah.
So trying to sort of, we've talked about, should we open a sort of store that sells tickets and merchandise, but where would we put it? Do we put it in the Spectrum? I mean, there's a lot of people there, but that's not really, we're Orange County Soccer Club, not just Irvine, but where is the centre of Orange County? It's not a city with a centre in a normal sense. So I think one of the big challenges is how do we actually tell people about this thing? And like I say, everyone who seems to go loves it.
Yeah.
But it's how do we get more people through the door?
Yes.
I think that's one of our big challenges.
So that would be leading to my other question. So how can our followers, whoever's listening or watching to this, help you?
That's a great question. I would implore
you can stare.
I'm going to stare down the camera. I think I'd implore the people listening to this. I mean, hopefully you know about us, but if you don't, check us out. And we can do something. Actually, we can give you a link to sort of discounted tickets so that
I really want to do that. We talked about doing we're sponsored by Love Irvine, and so we're having a Love Irvine night and doing something where we could all wear t-shirts and help support and
100%.
or volunteer there, and there's lots of, because we're all about community as well, and so that's why I wanted to ask that question.
I mean, I think the message would be, if you know about us, thank you. Tell your friends about us.
Yes.
And actually we do, during the year, we do a thing with our season ticket holders for certain games. We do sort of bring a buddy, and they bring a buddy, and actually that person often ends up buying their own season ticket. And I think the question is, if you don't know about us, make the effort to try and find out about us.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'm happy to do a sort of link for some kind of special offer, because we'd love to let people come in and make some memories with us.
We would love to help support that, because that's one of the reasons I'm excited having you here. Is you're a part of the fabric of the local community, and you're trying to
and to be clear,
more.
Obviously we want people to come in, and it's a great family atmosphere, and we want people to have fun, but we genuinely see ourselves as part of the community, and giving back is important. So we have a foundation that not every soccer club does, and we run clinics to the underserved communities to try and give them sporting opportunities. We do a community night specifically once a year where different charities and non-profits come in. We had a wonderful moment, it would be 2 seasons ago, where a young girl representing Ronald McDonald House kicked from the centre circle into the goal and won $5,000 for her charity.
Wow.
Unfortunately, a year later, a representative from a different charity kicked from the halfway line and missed the goal and didn't win $5,000 for their charity, but they could have done. But we definitely
happens.
It happens.
There's winners and losers.
It's sport. There's got to be jeopardy. So we like to have, community. We do a lot of giving back. One of our so we have a lot of brands who sponsor us in the way that most sports teams do, but actually
quite a few.
We have a brand, a charity who are one of our sponsors, set up in the name of a young footballer who was killed by a drink driver. Our Get Home Safely at the End of the Game message is brought to you by the Noah Benadou Foundation. So community is really important to us. So it's about coming to have fun, and we have these amazing beer fests 4 or 5 times a year.
You actually, I will give you a little public service. So you have whiskey nights. Did you have a tequila night too?
We did have
and
a tequila
beer
night.
Yep. And that, to me, it's like, okay, that's like beckoning the community to come and participate.
Yeah. Eating, drinking, giving. That's how we like
there you go.
to see ourselves.
Enjoy a good game too. So
absolutely.
So, hey, just a couple fun questions maybe. What's, what do you like to? What's your go-to food if you go or whenever you go out to dinner? What's your go-to? You have a favorite dish?
When I lived in England, it was indisputably we'd go for a curry. Indian food is extraordinary over in England. Since I left the country, I've struggled to find. We have a local curry house, but we go to the least worst curry house, not the best one.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So we had to sort of.
So there's a challenge out there.
Well, there is, but we also had to re-explore.
Yeah.
And Mexican food here, for very obvious geographic reasons, is extraordinary. So we do love to go out now for Mexican as often as we can.
Okay.
And there's a place called Taqueria Oi who have a food truck at our games, and they're fantastic.
So they've been personally certified by you.
No. On game day, we're sort of too busy to eat, but I always find time to sneak off a chicken quesadilla from Taqueria Oi. So
there you go. So I guess kind of winding down here, what would be a good?
Sorry, Kurt, I'm going to interrupt you. What's your go-to food?
Mine. You know what? I think it is tacos.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's tacos. We live in India. Actually, our three go-tos. Tacos is our default, probably, but Indian food, and then we have Thai food.
Okay.
Not necessarily in that order. I think Thai's probably second.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay.
I like it. I love talking about food. So what's a takeaway then? What for our followers, like for you to like, what's a takeaway about you? What would you like our followers to know about you, like as a takeaway, a quick fun fact, or like here's Dan in one little phrase?
That's a good question. It's a very good ending question. I might steal this for one of my podcasts.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I like it.
Yeah. No, I think it has to be. I think it's related to the job, but that's because I picked a job that's related to sort of things I believe in. I think if all my friends who have got, I think I can say this, who've got sort of boring bank jobs or they're lawyers, they're like guys I went to school with who've got very sort of linear, put on a suit, get the tube up to London and work sort of jobs, always say to me, I can't believe that you've got such an interesting job and, how lucky you are and so on. And I think I'm an example of find something you really care about and try and make that your career.
Yeah,
because then
get paid for it.
Then it doesn't feel like work, as the sort of the old cliche goes. And I love football. I love watching it. I love playing it. I still play in I'm getting old now, but I play in an over 14s league, and I still just about make it work. So I love football. I love talking about it. I love talking to people about it. I love playing it. I love watching it, and I get to work in it. And I think I'm not saying I'm Mr. Football, but I think my friends see it as sort of my whole life is around football, and it sort of is in a healthy way.
So it's find something, take your cue in finding something you're passionate about and make that your career, or make it
if you can.
Yes. That's a takeaway. So good advice there. So, well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Dan, and it was really interesting hearing about you. I know people will be more interested too in hearing about this and learning about you and coming out to a game and learning more about the OC Soccer Club. And I want to thank our followers today, for our viewers and followers and listeners for joining us on another episode of What's Up Irvine. And if you have any topics or people you think would be interesting for us to interview, please send an email to info@loveirvine.org. info@loveirvine.org, and we'll take a look at it. And thank you so much. And again, thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Curtis.